Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CannaCast podcast. I'm Ida Pearlie, the Deputy Director here at the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association. And today, joining me, I have Mike Bahora from Pure Lapeer. How are
You're
you?
in Baltimore now, right?
Oh, sorry.
I'm good. Thanks. How are you, Ida? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, how are you doing, Mike?
I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on down and joining us today in Lansing.
My pleasure. Thank you. Robin's been after me to come visit, so we finally were able to connect over here.
And I love you brought us some swag.
Yep.
So we have some t-shirts. I love the sweatshirt. We're
awesome.
Today's 80 and tomorrow's 60.
I know. I'm just getting you ready just for the next couple of months. So.
And then what did you bring with us?
Just a couple of things that we started up. We launched recently. Saver is a disposable cart that we make in house in New Baltimore, and then some moon rocks that we started making as well.
I love moon rocks.
Yeah,
moon rocks are fun. Yeah. So where exactly are you located?
So we're in New Baltimore. It's, if you want the address, it's 51543 Industrial Drive, but it's the last building on an industrial court.
Where exactly is New Baltimore?
New Baltimore is on the far east end of Macomb County, kind of all the way, 23 in Jefferson area.
Okay.
So pretty far from here, but it's Macomb County, and even though our location isn't the ideal retail location, we've had a good response, and it's been a good city for us. So.
Okay, yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So, what exactly is your background?
Well, I'm born and raised in Michigan. I grew up here. I live in Oakland County now. I grew up in Macomb County, but I'm married. I have 3 kids, and went to law school not far from where we're sitting.
Where'd you go to law school?
Cooley.
Yeah.
Mostly at the Auburn Hills campus, but I did have some classes here in Lansing. And went to law school kind of late in life. I was already married with 2 kids when I started. But I grew up in retail, in the family business, and we had grocery stores. And then I was in the cell phone business, retail cell phone store business, and just a bunch of different retail businesses that me and my partners have kind of took a stab at over the years. And I had always wanted to go to law school.
Okay.
And I took the LSAT, after college and was ready to go, and then got sidetracked with trying to be an entrepreneur.
Life happens.
Yep. And then next thing you know, it's 10 years later, right? So when I finally got a little window where I knew I could try it again, which was like 2011, I started law school. And
good for you.
Yeah, it was going like nights and weekends.
Yeah. Well, with a family, I mean, that had to be challenging in itself.
Yeah, it was crazy. My wife helped out quite a bit, of course, but yeah, in hindsight, it was nuts, but I got it done. And as we were talking earlier, I was a caregiver even when I was in law school.
Wow. So double duty.
Yeah. So I always knew I wanted to kind of focus on cannabis law. And that's, as soon as I got licensed, it was right around the time the MMFLA was coming out. And we were, first we were trying to keep caregivers out of jail, right? And then it was trying to get people licensed. And then, being with, having the retail background and kind of having that entrepreneurial bug, cannabis seemed like the next logical step.
Okay. So did you get into law strictly because of cannabis, or I know you said you really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't just for cannabis necessarily. It was something I always wanted to do.
Right. Okay.
And it was just, something that I didn't want to have regrets down the road that I should have went to law school. So I kind of had this goal in mind, and I hadn't achieved it. So I wanted to go and finish and did that. But from the time I started law school at that time, until I finished, I knew that this was kind of where I wanted to focus.
Okay.
Of course, in 2011, we didn't know that it was going to be legal. We had an idea, right, at some point that it was coming, but it was more, it was more to on the caregiver stuff and the evolving laws at that time. And I had friends that were caregivers. I was a caregiver, and police were kicking in everybody's doors, and nobody knew. The caregivers were kind of, they were kind of handcuffed, right? They didn't. We knew what the law said,
right?
But the municipalities and the police agencies had a different take on what what they thought it meant, right? So it was frustrating and challenging, but it was definitely a crazy time in Michigan.
Absolutely. Sure. Yeah. So why Why did you become a caregiver in the first place?
I love smoking weed. I was
personal use.
I wish I had a more compelling story, but I really enjoyed it since high school. I was,
I don't think people need a real compelling story though, because it's your personal story.
And look, it was like, I can grow my own weed, and I can give some to my patients.
Right?
Or let's be honest, mostly my friends, right? But hey,
cannabis is still medicinal. I don't care.
And listen, but it was just, for me, it was like, I just really enjoyed, learning the process. How we start with a little clone, and then, you nurture it, you take care of it, and all the trials and tribulations that come with trying to learn how to grow for the first time without very many tutorials at that time on how to do it right. And so anybody you talk to gave you a different way to do it. And every grower thought, this is probably still the case, but every grower thought they were the best grower in the world, and
I think that's
do it my way. When in reality, there's no single right way to do it, right? Everyone's got their own ways to do things, and there's multiple different methods on how to grow and be successful. But I wasn't a very good grower. I'm the first to admit. So I decided to stick
trial
to
and
retail.
tribulations.
Yeah. So it was. It lasted for 3 or 4 years, and then when I finished law school, I said, okay, maybe it's time to hang up my my caregiver card. So.
Go legit.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Okay. Yeah. So now after law school, how did you transition into cannabis?
So like I was saying, as soon as I got licensed, I think in 2014 or 15, and we were just still dealing with a lot of caregivers, the caregiver model, and all the issues that we were having with that. And then when the MMFLA was being proposed and was being kicked around, and I started meeting with a lot of my caregiver clients and, non-caregiver clients, candidly, that wanted to see how they can get into this industry. And what was cool for being a newer lawyer at the time was like, it was the one area of law now that nobody could say they knew more about than me, right? If I was going to be criminal defense, there was always somebody that was doing it longer and had more experience or whatever type of law. But
I like your take on that.
This is brand new, so I'm like, finally, nobody could say they know more about this than anyone else.
Right.
The time being. So, and listen, when you're a new lawyer, probably most professions, your first clients or customers are going to be probably people related to you, which was the case for me.
Exactly, people
Yeah. And so my brother-in-law at the time, well, he's still my brother-in-law, but at that time, he had this property in Lapeer, and he was starting getting phone calls, like random phone calls. Hey, do you want to sell your property for some crazy number, right? And
okay.
He's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So ultimately we figured out that that marijuana was coming to the city of Lapeer, and this property happened to be in the green zone, right?
Oh, they were zoned. Nice. Okay.
So he's like, listen, what do you know about marijuana law? And I said, well, no more or less than anyone else. We'll figure it out.
Right.
And I ended up applying myself personally there. And he was the landlord. And I said, listen, if I get approved and I get operational, I'll pay you a lot of rent, make your money out that way. And so I did that. And we opened that door. That was the first store we opened. It was in August of 2019.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
And,
how long did that take for it to open once you started your licensing process?
We got approval from the city in, I want to say May or June of 2018.
Okay.
And then by the time I submitted my application, at that time it was the board still. So it wasn't like a 30-day process like it is now.
Right.
It was like a 6-month process by the time they finished reviewing your application. And then we weren't even on the agenda until like January of,
oh my goodness,
of 2019 with the board. And then construction took about 4 or 5 months. But it was a big place. It was 6,000 square feet.
Oh, wow. That is a huge.
It was pretty big compared to a typical retail store. So it took a little while, but we opened from start to finish about a year. From the time we applied it. And now it's different, right? Because the approval process and the application process with the CRA is much quicker. Anybody out there that's watching or listening, if you remember back in the day, I mean, it was like they wanted 3 years of every single bank statement you've ever had in your life. And then they would go through it with a fine-tooth comb and ask you well, explain every transaction over $1,000 in the last year.
Oh my goodness.
So,
oh my goodness.
It was so burdensome, and it was so much paperwork, and, I challenge anyone to try to remember what they paid last month from their bank, and what each item was. So imagine going back 3 years.
I can't. Yeah, that's insane.
So it was difficult, but we made it through that process, and we opened, and it was a rough 6 months when we first opened.
It's so interesting because we hear so often, there's two sides. Either people have a really hard time getting licensed, or it was a breeze. And now I'm beginning to understand it's because of the board.
Yeah, the board.
And that makes complete sense.
Yeah, it was a crazy process back in the day. It was very difficult, and it was like once Governor Whitmer's administration was elected, when she was elected and she put her people in and got rid of the board, just made the process just so much easier. They didn't scrutinize your $1,200 mortgage payment that you made 3 years prior, or some people who were getting denied because of an unpaid traffic ticket or something ridiculous.
Something, yeah. That is.
And the great part is, ironically enough, they were you were denied for the most, nominal issue, like a misdemeanor from 10 years ago, and they were denying people. And now adult use comes in, and not only are you not denied, you get a discount if you have a marijuana conviction. So
it's funny how that flipped.
Yeah, it was interesting trying to explain to people like, hey, yeah, I can get you approved for adult use and get you a discount on licensing fees, but on the MMFLA, you might get denied. So it's like,
which is just insane.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah.
But thankfully now it's a much easier process. It's just this morning I got an approval back from the CRA that we submitted about 2 weeks ago. So
oh wow, wow.
2.5 weeks ago.
So from start to finish, then approximately how long is it going to take this client to be able to
get pre-qualification? I tell people like 30 to 60 days, but it's usually closer to 30 days. But it depends, right? If you're a bigger company and a more complicated organizational structure, and you have multiple shareholders, and it takes a little bit longer to get everybody's background checks back. But if it's a mom and pop type operation, 2 or 3 people involved, it's not more than a month.
Okay. Yeah.
For the pre-approval, and then obviously step 2 doesn't take very long. I'd say about the same time depending on how. A lot of times you're at the mercy of the municipality, right?
Yes.
Sign this attestation, and you're going to ask them a half a dozen times before they send it back, and waiting on certificate of occupancies. But as far as submitting to the CRA, they're pretty good about it, about turning things around quick now. So,
yeah, that's awesome to hear. Goodness. So, what's your craziest client story that you have, like with helping with pre-qual or licensing?
I don't know about one of my favorite stories is in 2018 when there was like, I don't know if you remember that you were allowed to, under the emergency rules, if you were already operating, you could stay open. And I had a client in the city of Detroit that some police agency, it wasn't even the city of Detroit, it was from Macomb County, ends up executing a search warrant, cutting all their plants down, even though they had an attestation from the city sign that they were allowed to be there, that they were temporarily operators.
Oh my goodness.
And so, I just remember being on the scene and getting there when they're still cutting everything down, having like a full-blown yelling, shouting match with the police officer, the sergeant that was handling it. And, it's the best part was a few months later when I finally got to say, I told you so. And I got to pick up all of their stuff from the police department, including a lot of cash. And, I made a big to-do of it. Took some pictures in front of the police station.
Good for you. Yeah.
Because I want, rub it in their face a little bit. Like,
right.
The problem is a lot of times you can't convince them, even though I'm showing them everything in black and white, they can't be convinced that they possibly made a mistake. God forbid.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Just things like that is, especially that one, like just being able to stand there with a bag of money, all their growing equipment, and everything except an apology, basically. Like, all right, come get your stuff. They didn't say sorry, but they said we're not pursuing this any longer, which is their way of saying sorry. Right? So,
oh my goodness, it's insane what some of the patients went through and still go through, just in general.
Yeah, and I still remember having that shouting match, and one of the guys I was with, my law partner, sounds like, hey, take it easy now. Because I'm passionate about it, and it's like, hey, excuse my language, but you're fucking wrong, man. Like, stop.
Right.
Right. And they wouldn't listen. And so it was just nice being able to, kind of shove it in their face a little.
Absolutely. Oh goodness. What is, who comes to you? Like, what's your average client? Are they middle-aged? Are they younger?
A little bit of both. I'd say probably like somewhere between 30 and 50 years old.
Okay.
Most of my clients are like, mom and pop type operators. I have, I've done a few of the bigger kind of organizational companies that have a lot of moving parts, but 95% of my clients are, mom and pop operators.
Okay. Now you personally, your office is still helping with the licenses.
Yeah, it's still up with the licenses. There's no conflict because there's no cap on the state licenses, right? So It's not like it's a competition. If we get to a scenario where they want to apply in a municipality that I happen to be applying, I let them know and say, listen, either you're good with it and I'll do it for you and I'll still give you my all, but if not, I understand, and I can refer you to some other people. But that doesn't happen very frequently, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah. Well, that goes to, your integrity and your character then.
Yeah. So, there's been one or two times where I happened to be applying in the same place that my client wanted to, and both times they were comfortable with me applying for them. And ironically enough, both times I scored higher on their applications than my own.
Oh my goodness!
They could never say that I didn't do my best on their application.
Right. Oh my goodness. So how is it with your family? Because you have 3 boys that you're raising with your wife.
Yep.
And so how are you raising them around cannabis?
I hadn't planned on bringing it up to them at the time when I actually did, but my son he was 14, I think, at the time. He's 15 now, so it was last year. He Googled me, and
okay, I have.
And then he said, "Dad, there's all this stuff about marijuana when I Google you." So I sat down with him and just had a frank conversation with him and about the industry. Right. Explained to him that look, yes, I'm a lawyer. Yes, I'm also in the business, but look, it's legal, and just like anything else in life, right? Everything's okay with moderation, right? I don't care what it is, right? Alcohol, cannabis, whatever it is that you could think of, it's okay to a point, right?
Right. Yeah. Everything.
You don't overdo anything. So I had that conversation with him, and my middle son, who's now 13, and it's funny because they'll throw little jabs in every once in a while.
Oh, of course.
But yeah, they know what's going on, and I have no problems discussing it with them and answering all their questions. And they'll ask me questions from time to time.
Right, right.
But it's cool. It's cool talking to your kids about that. It seems like yesterday they're little kids now, and now you're having like grown-up conversations.
Exactly. Them, so, yeah. The world changes so fast.
It does.
So fast. Oh goodness, I was just going to ask you another question that just poof popped out of my mind. It was about the kids. Oh well, we'll come back to it maybe. How did you come up with your logo?
This is like the 3rd version.
Okay.
So when we first started, it was just like something we had, I think it was my niece or something at the time, like, hey, can you do something, try to make something? And we tried it for a little bit, and then we made it a little cleaner. And then as we started to get a little busier, and I finally, because I couldn't afford to hire a marketing company or designers in the beginning, right? So, but once we turned the corner and we started, getting a little busier, and there was at least one comma in the bank account, then I engaged with Conquer Marketing, who's out of Ferndale, and they came up with this logo and they redesigned the store and stuff. And they did a great job
cool.
on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wish I could take credit for it.
No, but that's really cool though. Because again, we all have our own natural talents, and you were able to research elsewhere to find yours. And that's really cool.
Yeah. I always say, I know what I know. I'm
Yeah.
not too proud to say I don't know how to do this or I can't do it, and hire someone if it makes sense. It makes
Right.
more sense. So
Right.
But yeah, this wasn't the first version, but this is the one that's kind of
Okay.
stuck, yeah.
Well, and that kind of goes like to show for our members, our membership too, because we have, you know, the licensees, but then all of the ancillary companies who do, and Conquer is one of our members.
Oh, yeah. So there you go.
So I love how it came full circle.
Yeah, they did. And they didn't pay me to say that. I name dropped them out of love.
Oh goodness. So what's the culture around Pure New Baltimore?
So, my biggest thing that I've always kind of, even in Lapeer, when I had that first store, before we sold it, it was like no pressure sales, right? Like I want people to feel comfortable, and I want, whether it's somebody that's, a very experienced cannabis user or someone that's brand new, if they want to spend 20 minutes or 5 minutes, or you just want to get in and out, let them take all the time, and the other thing is like, we don't pay, our people don't get paid on commissions, or I don't want my employees to feel pressured to sell or oversell, right? Do we need revenue to maintain the business? Of course, right? But I don't ever want someone, because I hate it as a consumer, right? If I go to the mall or somewhere and you get attacked by all the salespeople, I'm like, leave me alone, man. So
I'm here for one thing.
So I kind of brought that idea, like, hey, look, we're going to give them good service. We're not going to pressure people. And the other thing that's real important is pricing, right? Like, I get some, we do some aggressive buying from the vendors, but because we can buy in bulk and big quantities, and we pay our bills on time. If I'm able to save a few bucks here and there, we pass it on to the customer. So a lot of times, and I know a lot of people, a lot of the guys in the industry, and a lot of even my competitors, and they'll kid with me. Sometimes kidding, sometimes maybe not so much kidding, but they're always like, "Why are your prices so cheap?" I'm like, "I'm still making my margins, just passing the savings on." So it's about, to answer the question directly, it's about giving good service and having good pricing, competitive pricing. And again, I came from retail for 20 years.
Exactly. So there already is that background. Yeah.
It's not much different than other, once you learn the cannabis aspect of it, the retail and all the lessons learned in retail in general is, you can apply much of that to cannabis. So
it's really interesting too, because I know we were talking earlier about, when people come in, they just think it's one big party, and it's like, no, like this is business, this is work.
And listen, we're not trying to work anybody to death. Like,
exactly.
Do your job, and no one's going to bother you. That's what I tell them. Look, just get your job done, and everybody does that. It's cool. It's kind of cool. Like, I don't want to yell at anyone. I don't want to micromanage anyone. So we got a great team over there, and they do a good job. And everybody kind of knows. Like, everybody knows what they got to do, and there's nothing wrong with having fun at the same time. Right?
Exactly.
But listen, it's all kind of intertwined, right? If you have a busier store, and there's customers coming in and out, the day flies by. Ownership is not stressed. If there's no money in the account, if business is good, so if it starts to go bad, it all kind of unwinds a little bit. Right, so we're fortunate that we haven't had to deal with that in a couple of years, but yeah, no, it's, our culture is, like I said, it's basically just good service and competitive pricing is our main two things.
Which is important. Yeah. Who's your average customer or patient that comes in?
I think last time I looked, it was like a 46-year-old woman, believe it or not.
Okay.
when we hit all the data points, it is a very diverse clientele. And even up in Lapeer, when I had that store, we'd see people from all walks of life. And especially being that was my first store. I mean, I remember when we first opened, and I was seeing, grandmothers coming in, honestly thanking me, saying, "Hey, we're so glad you opened up. I don't have to send my grandson to Flint or to Detroit anymore or whatever. Like, I can just come and get it myself." And it was eye-opening for me too. It's not what I expected, right? I mean, right. But yeah, it's, I think, and every time I go to city council meetings, or I'm trying to pitch to a new city, like, hey, I'm like, I promise you that one of your neighbors probably smokes, even if you don't. And I tell them, stop. I always invite them, especially the people that are against it. I invite them to stop it. I'm like, come check it out. probably not what you think it is.
Right. Well, and it's educating. It's helping them understand and identify why they feel that way. First of all, because it's a judgment.
Yeah.
There's no information, actual base behind it.
Yeah. They it's not as bad as it used to be, and it's getting better, but you still have folks that, think that, you're drug dealers, and they think of lava lamps and beaded curtains and a bunch of hippies hanging out, which is nothing wrong with that. But they have this in their head, like that's what they're at. Oh, and there's going to be crime, and my property values are going to decrease. And I'm like, it couldn't be further. And there's no evidence for it. There's none. It's actually the opposite.
Yes.
Cases. So we've never had any serious police incident. You have your occasional, shoplifter or something like that. But, in Lapeer, we never had a police call. In fact, the police used our surveillance a few times to help them with investigations related to like a break-in down the street or something. So, and I always tell city, when I go to a city council meeting, I'm like, listen, short of the police department, it might be the safest building in town with all the security and security guards in many cases. And it's just, and I think slowly it's changing. Attitudes are changing. Not as quickly as some people would like, but we've come a long way.
Yes, you're right. We definitely have come a long way. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, like, I think we talked about this before. I like, as recently as 4 or 5 years ago, if I sold marijuana to someone, it's a potential felony, right? For manufacturing, delivering marijuana. Yeah. Today, I have a license to sell it and deliver it to your front door, and we're deemed essential in a global pandemic. So
did you ever think in your wildest dreams cannabis would be legal and then deemed essential?
No, I'd be lying if I said I did. And sometimes I have to pinch myself. I was telling you, like, I can pick up the phone and order 100 pounds of flour from someone, and I don't have to talk in code words or get a burner phone. I'm like, I got a license. This is
right.
So it's been a crazy 5 or 6 years in this industry here in Michigan. But
I bet, and you were at the forefront of all seeing it and being a part of it, and that's exciting. Yeah, definitely.
I always tell people I wish there was a camera following me around for all those years.
Talk about reality TV.
Yeah, it was great. There's been some crazy things that happened, but it's been fun.
Yeah, that would be fun.
And the greatest part, honestly, is just getting to meet all these people that I would have never otherwise have met or
exactly.
With, right?
Yes.
I have some, good friends that I've met in the last 4 or 5 years who I met because of cannabis. So it's just it's that much. It makes it that much more worthwhile, special and like worth it. That
Absolutely.
We kind of stuck it out and we kind of navigated and tried to figure things out.
Right. What does it mean personally for you to be able to bring cannabis into your community?
So to me, I always told, like I said, when I talk to city councils and I talk to planning commission people, and I'm like, especially when they're debating if they should opt in or not, I'm like, listen, I'm pretty candid. I'm like, I'm open. I don't try not to talk like a lawyer, right? I try to talk and just as a normal guy. So I'm like, cannabis has been here long before you and I were ever here, and it's going to be here long after you and I are gone. And whether you like it or not, it's here, and it's likely being delivered here by some other retailer.
Right.
And this is a way for you to make sure that people have access to safe, regulated, tested cannabis in your community. And guess what? You get to make a few bucks on it too. And put not a few, but for some municipalities, it's real money. I mean, I think it was like $56,000 per store that they got this year. So like
they can go back. That can go right back into their own communities.
Yeah,
which is huge.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
And, I got to know the mayor of the city of Lapeer over the years, and she's great, by the way. And when they got this check for like $300,000 in March, she was ecstatic.
Exactly.
I mean,
yeah. Think of everything they can do.
50, 60 grand a store.
Right.
And it was some validation, like to people like her who were advocating for it, and maybe not everybody in the city was on board, right? Right. City council is usually not unanimous, right? It's always contentious for the most part. So, it gives them some validation too. Like, look, told you we were going to be able to make money, and that's a lot of money for a city like that. It's not a huge city. So I'm glad that at least there's some skeptics in local politics who always say, well, Lansing promises the world and we never get any checks, but they're actually cutting checks for this now, right? So, so it's cool to see it coming, and we try to, educate cities. Some of them are never going to change their mind, but some of them will listen and they'll hear you out and they'll take a vote. Sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't, but it's there. Whether they want to make money off it or not is up to them.
Right. And that's all you can do. Essentially, is just bring the information forth, and however someone decides to interpret it, literally.
And listen, I'm not the kind that's going to go like pressure you and bother them. Like, listen, here's all the information. Ask me whatever questions you want. I'm going to tell you how I feel, and then I'm going to let you guys decide. I don't want to be the person that's going to be, the pressure salesman, so to speak. Right?
Well, but there's no reason to.
No.
Yeah.
And I think more municipalities, not as many as we'd like to see, but as they start opting in, if some other municipalities that were maybe on the fence, they start to see like, all right, well, hey, the city of Lapeer opted in, or the city of Lansing, or all these, Ann Arbor, Detroit. All right, maybe it's not the end of the world if we opt in. So right. It turns into a snowball effect. Eventually we'll have a lot more municipalities, but we'll see. Some are going to take a little longer than others. But
I still think Michigan's doing pretty darn good.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And listen, I always tell people it's very competitive. It's a very competitive market.
Extremely.
I'm sure most of the people watching, if they're license holders, they know that. And I always tell people, look, if you can make it in Michigan, you could probably make it at any other market if you want to branch out. Because this is one of the toughest markets, like competitively, especially in retail. It's different about this business than other retail businesses. If you were in retail, whatever it was, restaurants or whatever, you're usually just competitors are usually the people like within a couple miles of you. Right. And cannabis now, and with weed maps and Google and billboards, you're competing with essentially the whole state, or at least a couple 100 miles around you.
You're right. Yeah. I didn't even think about it like that. Wow. And if you know anything about weed maps and how it works, you've got to pay for presence in different counties and parts of that county. So, we get people that come in and say, can you match a price from, Monroe, my goodness,
all the way to New Baltimore, which is 2 hours away.
I would have, price matching now, huh?
So it's like, so you have to be on your toes, and you got to stay sharp, and you got to be able to adapt. And it's not just, well, I got my deals for the month. We do different deals every day because you have to keep it fresh, right? You have to keep it
incentivized and keep your customers happy and coming back.
There's 3 stores in New Baltimore, which of course we're all competitors, but we're truly competing with probably 50 stores around us.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So, Mike, what's on the horizon for Pure New Baltimore? What do you got going on?
Well, we have processing on site as well, and we're kind of
in New Baltimore.
In New Baltimore,
wow.
It's connected to the retail. It's all in the same building.
Oh, that was the large building, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So we're focusing on creating our own stuff. It's easy because we could just sell it at our store, right? Right. It's a little bit riskier of a venture if you're a brand new processor and you don't exactly have customers to sell it to yet. So it makes it a little bit easier, but we are opening additional, but retail is our kind of, our bread and butter, so to speak. Okay. So we have a store opening in Monroe and one in Oxford, Pure Monroe, Pure Oxford. That's exciting. Yep. So 2 more, so 3 stores total you'll have by the end of this year? By the end of this year for sure. They're getting to the finish line with construction. Wow, that's so exciting. I know. Monroe should be fun. A lot of my friends are there. There's probably like 15 stores already open there. So that should be interesting. I have an application pending, and I think East Point, but some of these cities just take a long time to. They do. And we're kind of being a little more strategic about, initially early on, it was like you would go apply whoever opted in, because there wasn't a lot of places opting in, right? Exactly. So now we're kind of focusing on making sure it's the city that that we want to be there, or that we feel like, look, at the end of the day, you need to make a profit. Right? Exactly. And sometimes I think people are afraid to talk about that. Like, we're trying to make money, right? This is we put hundreds of hours into, or sometimes 100 hours a week 80 hours a week, our life savings, yeah, we want to turn a profit.
Yes.
Right? And
yes.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I don't think there's anything wrong talking about money. I mean, you're right. Some people are a little skeptical. They think, cannabis medicine, that's what it should be for. Yes, that's what it should be for. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with getting into this for the money. No. I mean,
I love cannabis. I've been using it for a long time. But at the end of the day, if I'm going to put up basically my life savings,
right?
I want to try to get a return on that, right?
Exactly. Maximize what you can.
Listen, I've had business ventures that failed. It's not a good feeling.
Right.
So, right. At the end of the day, we want to make money. So we have to go in a city where we really think it's not going to be a 8-month or 12-month struggle uphill, working to turn a profit. I want to be able to turn a profit, in 3 to 6 months. Those are the kind of places we're looking for now, but Michigan's getting tougher and tougher, right?
It is.
We are branching out. We're moving. We have a grow facility and a processing facility that just got licensed. It's not under the Pure brand, but it's in Massachusetts. So
wow,
kind of taking the show on the road a little bit.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Okay, so multi-state, huh?
Yeah,
big things are coming.
I'm not a multi-state operator. Not yet. Don't let me in with those guys.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. We just getting the ball rolling. We'll be in Massachusetts next week, but it's been crazy.
I bet it sounds like it. Yeah. Goodness, I know what I was going to ask about your kids. So, how are their friends, the parents? I'm sure they know what you do, right?
They do, and they've been great. To be honest with you, it's actually they got tons of questions. Right? I'm sure. And a lot of times. Well, I won't name drop, but a lot of times they'll ask me for samples, or hey, can you bring me some of this or bring me some of that? And
you're the person to ask.
It's funny when my kids, if he has out of state like sports tournament that we're traveling, I'll get a call for probably like half the dads on the team. Hey, can you bring me some of this for the weekend? I feel like a mule, like a drug mule, taking all this stuff down.
Oh my goodness, right?
But no, yeah, it's crazy. I haven't had a bad experience. No one's ever said my kid can't hang around with your kid because you're in cannabis or anything like that.
That's refreshing. That has to be. Your kids don't even understand like the consequences.
And maybe I hope other people have similar stories. Maybe it's because they know I'm a lawyer too. Maybe that gives me a little more credibility. I probably don't deserve.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But no, I haven't had bad experiences or anything related to that.
That's really good. Yeah. Again, though, I would assume it enables.
If this was 10 years ago, it'd be a totally different story.
True. But I would think it would enable you more freely to talk about it and then to help educate too, because there's not that stigma, there's not that judgment and condescending behavior.
Yeah, it's I'm sure when you tell someone you're in cannabis, it's like that's all they want to talk about.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which is great in the beginning, and you were happy to talk about it. But when you talk about cannabis, when I'm talking about marijuana all day at work, and then I don't want to talk about it anymore when I'm at work.
I'm done. Peace out.
Yeah,
literally.
But it's cool. I appreciate the people's like their curiousness and the inquiries, and I like to explain it to people, and if I can change a mind here or there, great.
Absolutely. Yay. Yeah. So, Mike, why was it important for you to become a member of the MiCIA?
So all of the retail businesses I was in before had some trade association, remember? So I know how important it is to be part of a trade association. But how I first came to find out about MiCIA was when we first opened up, and I was like, can't find any flower. And I started calling around everybody I know, and one of a client of mine said, you need to call Robin and see and I said, who's Robin? And anyway, they connected me with you guys, and I became a member, and Robin was great, and you guys were all great to try to help me. Like, hey, call this guy, he might have some flower for you. Call this guy, and I was, that's how it started. I've been a fan ever since, and I know how important trade associations are, especially ones that have the right focus and the right mission, like you guys do. It's been an honor.
Well, we appreciate you being a member, and we love, working with you. And yes, absolutely. And all that you bring to the industry in itself.
I appreciate it. We couldn't do any of this without you guys. So we appreciate you guys as well.
Absolutely. Definitely a partnership.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're interested in membership, go ahead and reach out to the info@micia.org, and we will definitely reach out. with follow-up. But thank you so much for joining us today.
No, I appreciate it.
I enjoyed, listening about the attorney part, the licensing part.
Listen, a lot of times the client, not to extend this thing, but like clients come in, I feel like 90% of my advice to them is from being a licensee, not necessarily a lawyer.
Oh,
like, look, here's what to really expect. This is how much money you're going to need. This is how much time I know your contractor said he can do it in 8 months, but I promise you it's going to take 18 months.
Real life experience.
Like that.
Yes.
Hey, oh, you think flour is $2,000 a pound? No. It's more like 1,000 or 800 now, So, I'm not trying to talk them out of it, but they need to hear from people in the industry that give them real advice. Right?
Exactly.
Like, hey,
yes.
This is what you should expect. And a lot of times I tell them I don't think it's right for you. You can, I'm happy to help you if you want to, but if they're brand new and they know nothing about cannabis, or they've never been in retail, they've never been a grower, they just heard marijuana and they're going to get rich.
Dollar signs.
I'm like, slow down.
Right.
This is not the right thing for you. So it's nice being a licensee. I can give them that perspective.
Yeah, and that goes back to your integrity, which again, it's real life, advice and expectations, and you're just letting them know, I've never advertised my law firm, nothing. Like, it's always just been referrals, because I try not to gouge anyone. I try to give them honest advice, and people refer me business, so I've been fortunate. But no, I appreciate that. Yeah, you're definitely doing something right. Absolutely. We wish you all the continued success. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Absolutely. Thanks for having me. All right, now we're going to switch over to our ancillary shout out from Grove Bags. Grove Bags is the industry's leading provider of proprietary flexible packaging for all cannabis industry. They are a domestic company that meets the highest food, drug, and retail standards around the world, as well as the pioneers of the both first and best terpene preservation and protection method called terp lock packaging. Grove Bags are composed of a blend of several high barrier films with key permeability properties specific to cannabis. All unwanted gases and water vapor are actively diffused through the film barriers, forming the ideal mold-free environment to preserve the cannabis. Terp lock is used by thousands of home growers in addition to hundreds of the industry's top cultivators from cultivation to consumption, providing the key convenience of a burp-free cure and making humidity packs a solution of the past. So if you're interested in Grove Bags for packaging, reach out to them. We thank you all for joining us today, and hopefully got a little bit of advice from an attorney. Mike, thank you for joining us, and we hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us today. Peace.